Good morning, and you're listening to the Business in Vancouver radio show here on Roundhouse Radio 98.3. I'm Kirk LaPointe.
I'm Tyler Orton. And there's a new report out from Rosenzweig and Company. It's detailing a number of women in executive roles at Canada's 100 largest companies. Kirk, we are seeing an improvement from years past, but I have to be honest, the gender gap here is still very pronounced.
Yeah, and let's declare right up front that it's three guys talking about this.
Of course.
But I will say that the gap is still a problem. The wage gap, of course, is a problem, but the C-suite situation is still extremely dire. And yes, it's 2017.
Yeah. And with us to break it down as well is Jay Rosenzweig. He is the managing partner at Rosenzweig and Company. Jay, thanks for joining us on the show today.
My pleasure. Good to speak with you guys. I just wanted to sort of chime in on the comment about the fact that we are three men. I think actually the fact that we are three men is a great thing. We hear Sophie Trudeau talking about how it's important to have men chiming in and to support men and to have men support women in the quest ultimately for fairness and equality. You have NBA athletes leaning in with Sheryl Sandberg in her campaign, and I think that when 100% of the population is moving behind this kind of initiative, it's far better than having only 50.
Yeah, we can talk about the solutions in all of these cases.
Sure.
But clearly they're going to come from men.
Yeah, I think so. Together in partnership with women. Look, we'd like to see things move more quickly, of course, but the trend lines are moving. When we began this report, we report on women at top levels of the corporate world. There were 23 women, and this is 12 years ago, in corporate Canada's most senior positions. This year there are 48 women at the top, and we have every reason to believe gains will accelerate moving forward. The reasons are multifold. Females have comprised the majority of university graduates for more than 25 years in Canada, and are increasingly going to achieve postgraduate degrees in business and law and other professions. More than 30% of Canadian households now have women as the primary breadwinner. And study after study shows gender diversity increases performance at all companies, from startups to multinational corporations. Millions and millions of women and men marched in cities around the world on January 21st for gender equality, and they continue to do so throughout the world. Prime Minister Trudeau and President Trump recently established a new Canada-U.S. Council for the Advancement of Women Entrepreneurs and Business Leaders. So we choose to look at the glasses certainly being half full rather than half empty when we see all these wonderful initiatives happening.
But still, Jay, I can't help but think 48 women in roles like CEO, CFO, out of the 100 largest publicly traded companies in Canada. You know, how fast are we moving, though? And do we have any idea about when we'll reach somewhere closer to parity in the coming years, or is it going to be decades?
Well, that's a good question, and one is always asking, you know, what is the tipping point? And I think that's an important question to ask. Is it 20% of women in these leadership roles, or is it 30% or 40%? Is it 50%? Perhaps not, but I think we'll know when we reach it, and we'll have an aha moment. We do know that today's 98% men, to your point, versus 99% women, cannot by any stretch be called equality or fairness. We need positive role models and mentorship, and I think those two aspects will be critical in pushing us closer to the tipping point. I just feel that having studied this issue over the last 12 years, the momentum is greater, and once we hit a certain point, we will all feel that aha moment, and I think it's coming sooner than later, in my estimation.
I mean, last week here in Vancouver, Jay, we had at Business in Vancouver the Influential Women in Business Awards program, and
yes.
I've said at times, you know, that's one of those awards programs that, in a way, I hope at some point we don't have to have in order to identify this. I wonder whether the tipping point in all of this with women in the C-suites of our publicly traded companies comes when we don't have to do the count anymore.
Well, that's right. I always say that I hope to eventually work myself out of a job so that we no longer speak about male leaders and female leaders. We only speak about leaders. It's a notion that Sheryl Sandberg has also brought forward. And I do hope that it'll come sooner than later. And I'm optimistic that in our lifetime, we'll feel that aha moment. We also, I think in the meantime, these kinds of programs are important. There are a number of initiatives happening here in Toronto as well and across the country. Move the Dial is an enormous new movement promoting women in tech. It was established by a friend of mine and business advisor, Jody Kovitz, who's the CEO of Ace Tech. Hashtag Go Sponsor Her is a terrific new social media campaign where Canada's business leaders are joining in and promoting more women in senior roles, publicly pledging to champion a woman in her career and challenging other executives to participate. These are just some of the exciting things happening that indicate change is not only in the air, it is lasting and it is irreversible. But to your point, I hope that eventually we won't even need these programs. But in the meantime, we do need these programs to exert the inertia which is needed to move this thing forward.
I was going through the Advisory Council on Economic Growth reports recently, and one of the things that it identifies actually in the appendix of one of the reports is perhaps the need for something akin to a Great Canadian Corporate Challenge, where you actually, you set your targets, you express them, you publicize them, you talk about how well you're doing against them, you show the public that you're making this, and you, in a way, you decide that this is a competitive game, that you have to basically be this firm in striving for this objective of having appropriate representation.
Absolutely, and I do think that measuring is important. I do think education and public awareness is important, and that's why we do this report each and every year, listing literally the businesses that have women at top levels, and presenting to the corporate world a mirror so that they could see exactly what the state of affairs is. But we've never supported mandated or legislated quotas. We believe education regarding the benefits of diversity and inclusiveness is the better approach, because when poorly implemented, quotas can end up stigmatizing the very individuals they are designed to benefit. So there's that fine line. However, unless we see some real signs of progress, quotas could be on the horizon here in Canada. I hope not. I hope we don't need that kind of thing. As I say, we've never really supported that. But measurability is key.
Yeah, well, Jay, we like to think of Canada a very progressive country. These numbers are pretty surprising, thinking that's, just 9% of women hold these top roles. Is there any particular jurisdiction in the world? We always go to maybe some of those Scandinavian countries or something like that. But is there a particular jurisdiction in the world that's doing it right now?
Well, the regions, and you alluded to it, that happen to have the numbers at the highest levels are the regions that have implemented quotas first.
Really?
Such as Norway. They implemented quotas first and pegged the level on boards of directors at 40%. And sure enough, they got a critical mass, and their point was that you only reach critical mass when you reach the 1/3 level in leadership roles on boards and in executive offices. And once you reach that, it's sort of ball game over. You've got what you look for. On the other hand, like I said, there's problems with it, and including when businesses are threatened with the potential of being delisted for not hitting certain numbers, they may go into other jurisdictions. So that could backfire, and certainly nobody wants to be sitting at a boardroom table with others wondering, are they a quota, or are they there because of their merits?
Well, I tell you what, Jay, I hope in just a few years' time, I'll never have to speak to you about this subject ever again.
I hope so as well, and we'll have a glass of champagne when that happens.
Yeah,
that sounds
good.
great.
Yeah. So how do we do this? Good talking to you. Hope we don't talk again sometime. Yeah.
Well, let's talk about other stuff.
Sure. Well, that's Jay Rosenzweig.
Good to meet you guys.
Oh, you too. That's Jay Rosenzweig, managing partner at Rosenzweig and Company.
Take care.
And you're listening to Business in Vancouver. I'm Tyler Orton.
And I'm Kirk LaPointe.